Welcome to Food and Facilities, an online show for Planting to Processing magazine, formerly West Coast Industrial Solutions magazine. Watch what you read for safety, compliance, and innovation news within manufacturing, agriculture, food processing, and food and beverage industries. In this episode, we'll be discussing Central Valley Craft Chocolate with Yohanes Makmur of Raphio Chocolate, and we'll be discussing sales structure strategies with Jeff Soares of Sales Xcelleration and Elevated Sales Partners. Welcome to Food and Facilities. I'm Marketing Director for Planting to Processing, formerly West Coast Industrial Solutions magazine. Make sure to subscribe at wcismag.com/subscribe for all safety, compliance, and innovation news in manufacturing, food and beverage, food processing, and agriculture. Make sure to reach out to our sponsor, Safe Food Alliance. When it comes to food safety, they've got you covered. They have a full 360-degree suite of food safety services. Make sure to check them out at safefoodalliance.com. That's SAFEFOODALLIANCE.com, or you can check out their food safety center in Kingsburg, California. I'm here with Yohanes Makmur of Raphio Chocolate, and he's here to discuss his craft chocolate in the Central Valley. You can reach him at info@raphiochocolate.com. That's RAPHIOCHOCOLATE.com, or you can give him a call at 559-424-3369. Thank you for joining, Yohanes. Can you give us a little background on yourself and Raphio for our viewers and listeners?
We actually started 2015. The idea of I had a partner at that time. The idea was to actually import cacao beans as a commodity from Indonesia, where I was born and raised. So my ex-partner at that time, just my good buddy, and we went through college together from same country, and we just hang out. And both of us were professionals. We have our full-time job, but on the side we were like, what can we do? What the market really demand. And he came up with idea, and I think encounter the craft chocolate movement in US. But when we looked at Indonesia as a source, it's not on the map. So we said, well, our family's still there. We have connections. We have siblings and family members who are definitely can help us navigate the supply market. So we did, and we found a farmer. We liked working with him, and we actually tried to ship samples and some products, and we got them. We like it, and then we start selling them here in US, but not successful in terms of quality being subpar to what the producers are used to here in US. So we pull a big trigger. Actually, we imported 1.5 tons after a few small shipments, but as soon as it scaled up, the farmer was overwhelmed and cut a lot of corners. The quality was bad, so we ended up with a big stockpile of cocoa beans that we cannot sell. So that's when Alicia stepped in, and she said, because we were ready to throw them away, but she stepped in and says, don't do that, don't throw it away. So she started making chocolate from the beans instead of just being importer. That's how it all started. So since then, we rebrand It's she loved the idea of making chocolate from scratch. I mean, if this is the chocolate I'm gonna make, it has to be good enough for my kids. So that's how Raphio was born. It's Raphael and Rio. We combine it, Raphio, and the mission is pretty simple. It's anything that we make from here on out, either that's chocolate, either that's confections, either we thinking about ice cream, whatever that is, it has to be good enough, good quality, nothing artificial that we don't want to feed our children. It's good enough for our children. We love them. They're kind of almost our guinea pig, but at the same time, it shows us that we cannot cut corners. We Anything that we put out the market is good enough for our own family. Yeah.
I think that segues perfectly with what makes your chocolate different. It's from Indonesia, a place that's not on the map but should be. I personally love your chocolate, but what are some challenges to running a microfactory?
Challenges, that's a big word in our everyday's life and operations of the business. um, Space is a big challenge. It's a factory, and then we are located in a retail shop. So we have machineries, we have people, and different products requires different space planning, but we try to squeeze everything inside this small retail. So space is a huge issue. At the same time, we cannot just simply go out and lease or rent a big space just because we need it, because we are still in the growing phase where we definitely have to control the expenses to the point where we're not going red. So it's still a juggling exercise to make sure that we put in the labor to compensate the space. So we have to move equipment, and then store them before we put out the next equipment that we can make different products. So um, we are still okay at the moment, but definitely as soon as we are going back to normal, we are looking at option to expand possibly, but this all depends on the market, really.
What are some resources that could help you make these changes, find a bigger space, etc.?
We have been, in the last 2 years, we have been working with CMTC. Since we are a manufacturing, we manufacture chocolate from scratch. So part of our operations, huge part of our operations, is in the manufacturing sector. So CMTC has been able to help us, not only just how to get the operational part element of the business tuned up, but also other aspects of the business, such as human resources, which we got a small grant to put us into a training program to make sure that we took care of that, since that's important um, part of any business. We also got some assistance with marketing. We got some assistance, definitely from the local CMTC advisor, who has been pretty much engaged in community for many years. Craig Sharton, he has been very helpful, connecting with a lot of local experts that we can tap into. So that has been a shining light, especially during pandemic, for the last year or so. But we still continue to be engaged with those organizations. Small Business Development Center, SBDC, has been also integral in terms of offering webinars and all low cost or free. And we've been able to learn a lot, not just making chocolate, but now running business, how to market our shop and brand. All that plays all plays kind of like almost a role in making the business work as a unit.
I've had some of your Enzo's olive oil infused chocolate bars. What are some other local brands that you've partnered with?
Enzo is our definitely the first two big two that we collaborated with. The first one was Kappa Joy. Um, so we know the owner Zach really well, and actually consulted with him before we even started the brand, and really like what he's been doing all these years in the uh, local market. So learn from him and collaborated. So we have chocolate with coffee beans that is really popular, and we use the coffee beans in our espresso drinks, and they also sell our chocolate since we use their beans. So it's almost a nice combinations because coffee and chocolate they're just like wine and chocolate, match made in heaven. So that brings us, the first two local collaboration partners, and then we expanded a little bit to Madeira with Ficklin Vineyards. So we use their port wine, which is really nice port wine. I don't know if you tried them, but it's so good. So we use their wine in our chocolate bonbons, and those are also very addictive. um, so we keep looking into options of how we can really partner with local businesses, because supporting local has been ingrained in our business since the very beginning. So this summer we are looking into expanding that a little bit more. So wait for our news, but we are coming up with something delicious.
What are your future plans for Raphio?
One aspect of the business that we were not planning from the beginning, but has kind of caught um, you know uh, very well, is the education part of the business. There's a lot of things that the customers never knew about. They most of our customers are in the 40s and 50s, and they pay more attention to what they consume, and as soon as we start to explain why our chocolate is different, why it's a lot more expensive compared to mass produced chocolate in the grocery store, they understand it. They want to know more. So, 3 years ago, after 2 years in business, we actually offer to provide tours to our factory, and so we kind of just open the door and walk through our kitchen and let everybody taste it, smell it, touch it, eat it, breathe it. It's really a full experience, and it has grown really well, and then it has to stop grinding halt because of pandemic. So we are looking in the future, we are looking into going back to that program, so that we can focus a little bit more on how to really offer this part of the business as an educational segment, and maybe grow on that experience, because not only we have public who not only pay, but they also becomes our loyal fans, and word of mouth, spread the word to everybody they know, but also including some of the school and program, and we are looking to expand that into, hopefully make it into a little bit of extra curriculum, because not only that an educational part, but hopefully we can change some of the eating habits of children from young age, rather than just go for sugary sweets and treats. We start with dark chocolate and then tell them, and educate the understanding behind it, so that if they can change their habit from early on, and hopefully they know that, oh, I can only eat this kind of chocolate, good chocolate, not what we call chocolatey sweets, chocolatey sugar, because it's just a chocolate flavored sugar that they've been eating instead of chocolate, real chocolate. So we are looking into that hard, and hopefully we can really uh, build our foundation based on that. And who knows what we looking into expanding the factory, with more focus on the tour and education, for schools, because we have done that before. We got buses coming in with children, but the space is just way too small, and we got there's one time there was in summer there was 45 kids inside that little space. It was a mess, but we had a lot of fun.
What would you need in order to meet these goals and plans? I know the pandemic ending would be a big part of that.
What really is what it entails in terms of the circulations, the space planning, how people move from one side to the other, without impeding the production. We don't want to, because right now we have to stop production for people to actually be there, because we don't want the kids to kind of touching stuff, because we want it to be a clean and sterile environment. So we stop productions, and weekends, that's the only time that we can only do that, and then have people come in and just roaming around the factory. But other than that, I think we have to think about other ways, maybe just through a big glass window, so production still can go on. We can do the tour during normal weekdays, and that will open up more schools and other organizations, like senior homes, to include us as part of the program, rather than only on Sundays, and which schools is closed, and a lot of people don't do a whole lot of activities on Sundays. So that's probably the first, and then you know the second one to make it happen is financial, of course, assistance. Whether we need to plan it ahead with getting some loans, or looking for grants, in terms of, maybe there are organizations out there who are willing to help with the because there'll be some cultural element of the tour, because we were talking about how the movement was started, where it came from. A lot of them is from Central America, um, you know, thousands years back. So there will be, who knows, organizations that are willing to help with artifacts, pictures, images that we can borrow and showcase to people. So it make it more interesting, more educational, rather than just on the food and beverage section.
My final question is, what is your favorite chocolate?
But for me, there is one chocolate bar that I really, really love, and that's dark chocolate from Tanzania, 72%. And that chocolate is just amazing in terms of, it's so complex, the flavor. It's not just, chocolate that you eat, oh, it's sweet and gone. It's really, once you enjoy it slowly, it started with like almost eating honey, and then once it start melting, that honey is gone, but something replaces it, which is the fruits. So you almost like eating a chocolate covered orange peel. And then after that, after you kind of enjoy that, and it says, how come chocolate tastes like that? Then at the very end, after chocolate is gone, it still lingers on your tongue, and then that's when you got this nice sweet, tangy flavor of that chocolate, and it's just like a nice roller coaster of flavors, like playing a concert in your mouth. So I like it so much that it's definitely my all-time favorite. And we have sent that chocolate to different chocolate competition around the world, and that one has won a medal in London, through Academy of Chocolate competition. So definitely we're proud of that one, and it's my favorite.
Congratulations on that recognition. Is there anything else you'd like to add about making chocolate or running a microfactory?
Yeah, when you pay attention to the ingredients, and it goes to everything, right? Not just chocolate, but a lot of food that we consume. We want to be mindful of how they are made, where they are made, and by who. And by this type of chocolate is what we call craft chocolate. Not only it's produced with a story here in Fresno, but where they come from is it's a huge story. Those farmers who actually grow and harvest them and process them and send them to us, without them there is no chocolate in the other parts of the world. So those in the third world countries, we are doing our part to help them out too. So a lot of the costs for us to purchase those raw ingredients, which are expensive, but knowing that those that we pay goes directly to the farmers to better their life, to better their families. Knowing that, that should make a lot of our customers feel good.
Thank you for joining, Yohanes. Listeners and viewers, make sure to reach out to Yohanes and his wife, Alicia, through their website at raphiochocolate.com. That's raphiochocolate.com. That's RAPHIOCOCOLATE.com, or give them a call at 559-424-3369.
Make sure to reach out to our sponsor, the InnoFact Show. They're going to be virtually in Las Vegas, June 8th to 9th, and they're showcasing innovations in facility management for hospitality and entertainment. Go to theinnofacshow.com/become a delegate and use our premium $20 discount using the code PLANT20 until May 25th. I'm here with my guest, Jeff Soares of Sales Xcelleration, and he's here to discuss how setting up a sales structure can help plan for the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tara, for having me here today. And I'm very excited to share with you my years of experience in sales leadership roles that I've had in the corporate world. Yes, my name is, again, Jeff Soares from Sales Xcelleration. I'm an advisor at Sales Xcelleration, one of about 150 or so advisors throughout the country. And what we all have in common is we have spent 20 plus years in the corporate world. So many of us have worked for very large organizations. Myself, I've worked at AT&T, but I've also worked for small to medium businesses. So businesses that are anywhere from 20 people up to 100 people, and also in a startup world as well. Being here in California, there's a lot of startup companies that are out there. So I have a very mixed and good broad range of experience, and have been very successful in different sales methodologies throughout my career. And what I love about what I do is it gives me an opportunity to give back to businesses out there that may be struggling when it comes to increasing sales and having a more of a forecast and a visibility beyond the current month, but in the second quarter, the third quarter, and beyond in years 1 and 2. So having that visibility is very important for a business owner. So a business owner can then make decisions of what they want to do with their business. They can make decisions on the different types of bill of materials or production planning, labor force, things like that are happening down the road. And beyond just bringing in the sales today, but having that forecast ability, that ability to see what the future sales look like is very, very important. So I'm going to talk about what a good infrastructure looks like in order to predict those future sales and be very, very close within a few percentage points of where you actually end up at the end of the quarter or end of the year. So what I'll be talking about is very important for any business that is, looking to exit at some point in the future. So every business has a life cycle. So sometimes it's a family-run business and they want to hand it down to a new generation, or maybe it's a business owner that's a baby boomer and is looking to retire here in the next few years, or sometimes there's life events that happen that are unforeseen, right? So it could be a marriage that dissolves and both parties are business owners. It could be a sudden health reasons and a death that could occur. And so having a good solid sales infrastructure is very important. So this way, if you need to exit the business or make decisions because there's a critical point that happened, anyone that comes in from the outside, if they're taking a look at the business, they're going to want to see a diverse set of accounts, a diverse set of markets, and be able to see incremental growth over time. And that knowing that now that the business is going to, let's say, exchange hands, that business will continue to bring in the proper revenue for it to be self-sustaining. So let's get into what it looks like to have a very solid and predictable sales infrastructure for a small to medium business. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. We're going to talk about 5 reasons your business needs a sales process. And when I say sales process, keep in mind that every single business is going to be quite different. Every single salesperson within the business will have their own, let's say, personality and characteristics and how they achieve the sales process. But every single member of the sales team should be following the same process. So it should really be institutionalized. And that's what large corporations do very, very well, is they really institutionalize the sales process, the buying cycle. And that's the reason why they're having, very, very accurate forecast and can predict future revenues. So let's talk about, why it's important. What are some reasons you as a business leader need to have a sales process? We talked a little bit about this earlier. You need some predictability, repeatability, and scalability, right? So you want to make sure that if you take a look at what's happened with COVID over the past year, some businesses really couldn't have some predictability, obviously. And especially if they had some client concentration, meaning that a vast majority of their revenue came from a select few accounts. Well, if one of those, let's say, was tied towards hospitality, I had a client that was heavily geared towards the cruise industry. And so, as you can imagine, during COVID, when no one has been cruising on the high seas for close to over a year now, that particular business really, really struggled. So having some predictability, repeatability, and scalability, right? So you can scale and you can get all your operations and back of house in order in a profitable manner is very, very important. And that's reason number 1 of why every business needs a sales process. But as you go through the process, there are what we call mile markers. These are what I call leading indicators, right? So you understand that if I have, let's say, 20 different proposals out there to potential clients, I know that on average, 30% of those will close within a certain given time. So that's a mile marker. So you know that if you have 20 proposals out there, roughly 1/3 of them will close. And we know what the total future revenue is with those. You can make an accurate forecast with that. Again, having a good sales process allows you to do some forecasting. It's a very tight labor market out there. I think everyone will agree with that. And if all of a sudden you have some fantastic months or quarters of sales, but yet you didn't forecast for that, perhaps you weren't getting your personnel and labor force in line with that future revenue. So all of a sudden, now you as a business leader are scrambling to try and get the manpower needed in order to fulfill all these fantastic new orders that just came in. So that's why it's so important to have an accurate forecast. It's just one very, very common example that you'll see today, again, with a tight labor force. Common language. So if you have sales is one, sales and marketing is one component of the business. You have finance, you have operations, you have human resources. It's very important for everyone within the organization to have a common language. So when I earlier talked about a proposal, so what does that mean, right? So proposal stage, meaning that the buyer's journey comes in and maybe they met you at a trade show. They've saw a video that you did that talked about your particular product or service that meets certain needs. And now they've reached out and they want to speak with a particular salesperson about their particular needs and what you could fulfill for them. And now it's in the proposal stage, right? So it's very important that everyone in the organization understands what the proposal stage means. And that, again, back to my example earlier, that when someone in the CFO or someone in finance understands that we do have 20 proposals out there, that we know that a third of those are going to close, and we know that that is. And so, again, you have a common language. It's not one salesperson saying that it's in proposal stage and another salesperson says, well, it's actually not in proposal stage. It's still in a qualifying stage, right? So again, you want to make sure that you have the necessary check boxes along the way, the mile markers that tell you that everyone in the organization agrees that this particular buyer or prospect is in the proposal stage. And just a couple other things to talk about what some of the reasons why your business needs a sales process is you want to make a quicker impact, right? So a lot of times when us at Sales Xcelleration are being brought in as advisors, many times the problems that they've had on the sales side have come as a result of many years of not having a sales process in place. And so many times when I'm talking with a business leader, I'm telling them, well, it's not going to take years to turn this around, but once we get the sales process in place and we start to put the right salespeople running that sales program in place, we'll have a much quicker impact on the overall business. Many times what business leaders want to do is they don't want to necessarily work on the sales process. They just want to run out and hire a bunch of new salespeople. And they think, well, I just hired 5 new salespeople. All of a sudden my sales are going to increase by 5 times. Not the case. You got to make sure you have a really solid sales process in place, then put in the people behind that process and have them go to work. So again, talking about the need for predictability and reliability. You want to remove the guesswork, right? You don't want to be sitting down and saying, well, we would like to increase revenue by 2 million this year. Great. How do you intend on doing that, right? It can't be a matter of, oh, we're just going to do a little bit more of what we've been doing. That's guesswork. You as a sales leader in the organization, this is what I really mentor and coach the clients that I work with, is that we're going to remove the guesswork and we're going to show you that sales is more of a science than it is an art or any type of good luck or fortune that happens. Again, back to my roots in the corporate world, there's a big reason why when public companies come out with quarterly guidance, those quarterly guidances are very close. And again, the reason why, because they have a great sales process, sales infrastructure in place. And again, you don't want to wing it, and you don't want to just be running by the seat of your pants. You want to make sure that when you do have to make business decisions of, do I expand, do I not, you want to have some forecast out there that's going to show you where you should be in the months and years ahead. And remove variables, right? So what is a potential variable? So a variable could be your actual sales folks, right? So maybe you have a sales team where one quarter they're doing a fantastic job, the next quarter not so much, the quarter after that a good sales job. So you start to have a very choppy line towards growth. It's not up, it's not completely down. It's just kind of up and down, up and down. And a big reason for that is perhaps you haven't had the proper training of the sales team for time management. What they're doing is they're spending a lot of time closing business, but maybe they're not spending any part of their week cultivating business, right? They're so focused on closing the business that's right in front of them. It's very important as you as a business leader, as a sales leader, to make sure the things that are going to contribute towards sales in the next quarter are still happening. So you remove those variables and you don't have that choppy or that wavy revenue line. So what are the things that you're going to see along the way? And if you think about a marathon, right? So a marathon is 26.2 miles. We all know how long it is, but what are these milestones that are going to happen along this marathon, right? So we know mile 1, mile 2, mile 3. What do we expect? Mile 12, we have a hill that we have to run up. We're getting into the 20th mile. We're going to be going downhill, or there's a heavy wind that's going to be in our face for this last portion. So again, these mile markers and what these milestones happen as you go through this marathon analogy here, you understand where you are in the race, what challenges you're going to have at that particular mile marker, and what are the things that you're going to do as an organization to overcome it. In this way, it really, you know where you are in the buyer's journey, and you understand what next steps need to take place. And again, back to what I talked about earlier, sales is more of a science, is to be certain of your progress, right? So when you know you're in, let's say, the final negotiating stage of a prospect, all the things that have happened along the way should tell you that you're there. Perhaps you have a very complex RFP, you've had to get operations or engineering involved in order to put an accurate proposal and agreement on the table for a client. You've put those business resources to work in your organization in order to have a final agreement for your customer to sign off on. Be certain that you've gotten to that point, and all the different milestones have been achieved along the way before you integrate, different operations and maybe finance of how we're going to finance this, how are we going to get paid from our customer over time, right? So maybe the CFO needs to get involved to understand what type of financing that potential client may need. Again, you're getting other business units involved in the buying process, but to make sure that each mile marker is done throughout the sales process is very important, so you're not wasting anyone else's time within the organization.
How do you suggest our listeners and viewers set mile markers that are both achievable and realistic?
Yeah, so that's where you really have to do some, you really have to understand your buyer's journey, right? So taking a look at some of your existing customers is a great way. So having a post-win report is very, very important. Sitting down with your existing clients is very, very important, right? So asking them, well, why did you choose us? And at what point did you make a decision that it was going to be us? Or what were some indicators that you knew that we would be the right fit? So this way, then you can start to backtrack of, okay, what are the things that I did along the way to make sure that this great client that we now have is repeatable, right? And can be done again with another similar type of an account. So a lot of times the way that you can achieve these milestones throughout the buyer's journey is just to make sure after you do the celebration that you won that big account, but do some homework and understand what went right and where these mile markers were, so you can put those into your buyer's process, buyer's journey. And again, your buyer's journey today could look different tomorrow. So again, when you're putting together this sales process and plan, it's not one thing that you just put into place one year and it doesn't change the next year, right? Again, many, many years ago when I was involved with sales, there really was no internet. The buyer needed to get information about the product from the actual salesperson. So a huge portion of the salesperson's time was just educational, educating the buyer of what your product is, what it could possibly do for their business, A lot of that information is done now by marketing or done digitally online with videos and white papers and things like that that people can download. So your salesperson, once they're in front of the potential customer, once they're in front of them, they have a customer that's much more educated and is further down the decision process than what people are used to in the past. So that's why, again, it's very important to constantly be evaluating your sales process. And your sales process could vary by product, could vary by industry, it could vary by a lot of it. And so you got to make sure what your buying process and your mile markers are, depending on your product line, your service, the type of customers, and things like that. So, and also when you lose a major account that didn't happen, right? Maybe there was a mile marker that you missed and now needs to be incorporated into the buyer's journey to make sure the next time that gets checked off the box and gets taken care of, right? Number 3, accurate forecasting. You want to leverage your past results, identify probabilities of closure, and base it on facts, right? So again, it's not one salesperson saying, oh yeah, this is definitely going to close this quarter. It's at 90% probability, right? You want to base it on facts. So again, that common language, where it is in the sales pipeline or sales funnel, you want to make sure that everyone is in agreement and that they understand that when it is at this stage, again, back to my example of the proposal stage, that when it is at that stage and you know that you have a 1/3 or 33% closure rate at the proposal stage, it's based on facts, right? So it's based on actual history, things that you can go back to and take a look at the data that's happened over time. And again, that's why it's so important to be tracking all this information. And it can't be just tracked by each individual salesperson. It needs to be tracked by the entire organization. So that's why a CRM or customer relationship management software, there's many of them out there. The big one that most people know of is Salesforce, but there's a lot of other ones out there that are just as wonderful, especially in the small to medium business community. And they really do not cost all that much per user. But having this CRM allows you to have some forecasting. It is really your template and allows you to make that accurate forecast for future closure. And again, like I said, it's based on facts. That we know that when it's at this stage, everyone in the organization can agree of its probability of closing. This way, when you get to the end of the quarter, you are within a few percentage points of where you said you would be. The worst, as a sales leader for myself, would be a salesperson that maybe they had a fantastic quarter. They were double of what they ended up for. So let's say, they were supposed to bring in, let's say, $1 million this quarter, and they brought in $2 million. Oh, that's fantastic! Congratulations! But it's scary for you as a business leader and a sales leader. Why? Because they may not have a good idea of what their business looks like, right? So if they could be off by that much, by doubling their revenue in a given quarter, perhaps they can come in with a goose egg in a given quarter. And that's just can't happen, right? You got to be able to make intelligent business decisions on what your future revenue looks like. And that's why we got to base it on facts and data. I know I did spend some time about this earlier, this common language, this cross-departmental communication, knowing what a sales cycle stage means. And I can't stress this enough, right? So the only way you can have an accurate forecast, something that's repeatable, and again, back to what I talked about earlier, something that is valuable, not just in your organization, but outside your organization. When someone, a third party, is looking at your organization and says, hey, this company, this XYZ agriculture company, I really like them because they have a very diverse range of revenue streams that come in from different areas. They always seem to hit their number, and they incrementally grow quarter over quarter. And why do they do that? Well, a big portion of that is not just sales, but they have an entire team. They got marketing, they got finance. It's a profitable business, meaning that when sales does bring in the additional revenue, the back of house, the operations can fulfill that, and they can fulfill it on a good chunky profit margin. And you want to make sure that that you have a sales compensation plan that rewards that. And when you do, you have some great results. Number 5, quicker impact. Again, many times myself as a sales consultant, a sales acceleration advisor are being brought in to make a real big impact because unfortunately there's some businesses out that are hurting. Again, client concentration is one of them. Perhaps too much revenue is tied to one salesperson or even the business owner, and something happens to that business owner or that salesperson leaves or health reasons. And again, you have the common adage, you have too many eggs in one basket. So it's very important to have the sales process in place because it allows you to have a much quicker impact, especially when you're onboarding new salespeople. I cannot stress you enough. First, go through the process, understand your buyer's journey, set up your sales plan, set up your process from beginning, the time that they're initially interested, maybe downloading a white paper or clicking on maybe a newsletter that you sent them, tracking that in your CRM to full closure. Maybe they're now a customer 9 months later. Understanding that cycle, how long does that take? And this way, when you go out and you hire additional salespeople, you put them in the best possible scenario to be successful now in your organization. It could have been successful in their previous organization. It could be a direct competitor of yours, but it doesn't mean that previous success is going to filter into your organization unless you have a very solid sales process. Fantastic. So here is the case study that I would like to share with the audience here. This it's a great way to kind of tie it all together. So this case study is a food service company. It is about 230 employees, and they had a sales team, which is very common for an organization that size to have 11 sales team members. And annual revenue was about 17 million that they did in annual revenue. Earlier on, I was talking about everyone having a common language and making sure that the business leaders in the organization are fully on board and understanding what sales needs to do, and that you have a common goal, right? So if you want to do 17 million in annual revenues, you want to make sure if you have a couple of different, let's say, industries that you play in, or you have a product and a service component to your mix, or a certain type of product that maybe might be more profitable to the business or is an area of growth for the business, you want to make sure that your compensation plan for your sales team plays into those overall goals that you have for the organization. So for instance, just an example, if you have a service component to your business as well as your product, and you make more money and more profit margin on that service piece, you want to make sure that the sales folks are highly compensated to make sure that they sell that portion of it. So it's very important to really have some clarity on what type of behavior you want your salespeople to administer out there throughout the year. Because salespeople, I'm one of them, been in the sales area for 25 years. We're very simple creatures. Understand that if I make X number of sales, I get compensated X number of ways. And every single sales organization that are out there, especially in the corporate world, has a compensation plans that are generally adjusted each year, given the environment that business is operating in, and also given the different goals that organization has. So this particular food service company had a comp plan that does not incentivize the correct behavior. So the problem was the comp plan did not exist. Probably hard maybe for some of you to realize, but maybe others that are out there in the audience know that they have sales folks, but they don't really have a compensation plan in place, or one that's not known by everyone. Or maybe if this example, they have 11 different salespeople and they have 11 different compensation plans for each individual salesperson. Or maybe it hasn't been touched for 5 to 10 years and it's outdated. Not very good for an organization to be operating in this manner. And how are you going to attract good new salespeople from outside the organization if you don't have a documented comp plan? Because I can tell you, as a high achiever in the sales world, people that come in that are looking to make an impact and achieve at 100+% of goal, they're looking at the comp plan, because the way they look at a comp plan is that, okay, how much do I make if I do 120% of goal? How much do I do if I make 150% of goal or 200% of goal? That's the way they look at it. And again, if you don't have a well-documented comp plan in place, how are you going to attract some of the best sales talent out there from possibly your competitors or adjacent industries? And also it gives focus, right? So you want to make sure that your sales team has focus. Many times in organizations fail to grow because they're not looking to acquire new accounts. And that's what you end up having when you have a compensation plan that pays for every single dollar equally, whether it's a new account or an existing account. That's a problem. Me as a sales leader, I don't have any problem with growing revenue with an account that's already doing business with us. But you know what? If I have a salesperson that brings in a brand new account that has never done any business with us, I value that revenue differently than the one that's currently already doing business with us, right? Because it's very, very difficult to go out and find new logos, new business, new clients that aren't doing business with you. And that's why a lot of salespeople don't focus on it unless the compensation plan rewards them accordingly, right? What I also see is, you see, if they do have a comp plan and they have a sales team, in this example of the case study, they had 11, they probably had different types of compensation plans. And what you see there is you get very frustrated salespeople for a lack of clarity on how they get paid. Let's make it simple. Let's have a compensation plan that's probably a page to 2 pages long. There's no reason that you should have a compensation plan that's 20 pages long. This way you can easily explain it to them. They can understand it. They can explain it to you, right? They can go home and explain it to their spouse. They know what their compensation plan, and they can sign off on it. And again, it's very important that these compensation plans, like I said earlier, takes a look at what, not all revenue is equal, right? So new revenue coming from a new account is different than revenue from an existing account, right? Maybe new revenue coming from a new industry that's growing is different than new revenue coming from an existing industry. And how are you going to pay that? A huge thing that you see out there is in total compensation. So to keep the numbers simple, if a salesperson is meeting their annual targets and they make $100,000 a year for making that annual target, generally a good rule of thumb is approximately 50% or half of that 100,000 should be paid out in a salary that they receive generally every 2 weeks. In this way, the balance of that is paid out in maybe monthly or quarterly commissions along the way towards the annual goal attainment, right? So if they are tracking at 100% and they are halfway through the year, then they should have $25,000 to date that has been paid to them in salary, and they should have $25,000 to them that has been paid in a comp plan or commission plan until they get to 100. Once they get to 100, it's very important to put accelerators in place. Why? Now you want to reward people to get above and beyond that 100%. So putting these accelerators in place are very important. In this case study, they had a 60-35% split, which is very common, especially if you have a very long sales cycle. Again, when I say long sales cycle, I'm generally saying from beginning to end beyond 3 months. If you have a longer sales cycle, you tend to have a base salary with a little bit higher. So in this scenario, that's a 60% base salary. So in my example, that would be $60,000 they get in a base salary. And then they had set up a 35% commission. And then they had a 5%, which is really nice. You can be very, very strategic in the way you set up your compensation plan. They paid a 5% commission at the end of the quarter when certain growth goals were met. Okay. So again, they have here new revenue, customer satisfaction, right? Making sure that the customer is very happy and is staying with you long-term. Maybe they're renewing their agreements with you. And then this way you have a nice 5% commission on top of that. So again, back to the final point, comp plans need to be simple. They need to be aligned to the business. So this way, when they do that 17 million in annual revenue, which was their goal, that it's the right type of 17 million and that the business can be profitable from that 17 million. What you get is you get 11 reps in this scenario. You have everyone in the sales team very happy with this clarity, and could probably attract some good talent outside the organization should you need to do so. So that's a comp plan that works.
And having additional incentives to go above and beyond will make sure that your employees don't just cap out at whatever their commission rate is.
That's a great point, Tara. I can tell you that I worked in an organization many, many years ago, and their cap out was at 300%, so it was a good year for me. And I was, so maybe the annual goal wasn't high enough, right? But I'm not the one that wrote the comp plan. That was the organization at that particular time. So I was at 300%, and it was September, right? So there was still at end of September, still a quarter left, October through December. And I said to the management, I said, why would I continue to sell? Because I get every dollar I bring in, I get $0 in commission. And that's not a good scenario to be in. You don't want your salespeople taking 3 months off, right? You don't want your salespeople. A big term in the industry is called sandbagging, meaning that you take a sale and you slow it down, right? So maybe in my scenario there, it was October, November, I had a potential sale and I slowed it down to make sure that it closed in January of the new year. Again, that's the type of behavior you're going to get when you start to have caps on commission plans. So I can understand that there might be big whales out there and the business needs to protect themselves and has to have guardrails. If they bring in this multi-million dollar account, I can understand that, but you should still be compensating them along the way.
Now that things are finally opening up, do you have any suggestions for our viewers and listeners on how to best take advantage of all the new sales that they're likely to be getting?
Yeah, so a lot of people had to do in the past year had to do remote selling or distance selling, right? So there was a lot of Zoom calls. There was a lot of video presentations that you had to do online. And that's a great tool. And I still think there's a face-to-face portion of the sales process that's very, very important. But I think a lot of business leaders can take a look at the buyer's journey now. And again, the buyer, because of this whole effect, right? They're on the same side as we are. They've been a part of this whole digital effect. They may be comfortable with going a certain distance through the buyer's journey digitally, right? So maybe instead of having your initial discovery meeting with the client in person, maybe you're doing this over a Zoom call. And then after it gets to a certain point, a certain milestone, then you go out there and drive out or take an airplane out and you go visit them and see their facility and possibly take them to lunch. So that's what I'm seeing out there is what we've been through over the last year, understanding the distance or remote selling aspect, the different tools that are out there, and putting that into place to have an efficient sales organization. But you'll never get away from the human aspect, and people want to make sure that they know who they're buying from, that they feel comfortable with it, and that you truly understand that your product or service will fix whatever it is they're looking to solve. And there's growth out there, right? So a lot of the engagements that I saw 6 months ago were more of save us, right? Come in and sales are nosediving. We've got to stabilize. We've got to just right the ship, so to speak. That has changed. People are looking to hire new salespeople right now. People are just looking to spend money on marketing, right? People are looking at adjacent markets that they can possibly go into. So they're looking to put some dollars, right? Some dollars behind expanding. Maybe it's a new facility, maybe it's new salespeople, operations people, like I said, new markets. And again, before you do all that, let's make sure that you have a good sales process and plan in place, that you understand what the strategy is and all the different tactics that you need to do, right? The milestones that you need to achieve, the leading indicators that are out there to know that you'll be successful once you do decide to run the race.
What's something that you wish more business owners knew about sales?
I wish more business owners understood, right? So I'm talking about small business owners, maybe CEOs know this in large corporate, but I wish more business owners understood that it's not a personality. It's not that when this person is very outgoing. I met them at a trade show. They're going to come into my business. They're going to be super fantastic and successful here. I've seen them work at a supplier or competitor or something like that, and now they're going to come into my business and they're going to be ultra successful. Well, you don't know that, and so again, I always stress to business owners that again, back to this having this plan in place. Before you make that investment, that person can be very successful in your organization, and maybe they are a correct hire for you. But just because of the previous success that they had, there might have been some things that they have in place that you don't have in place that are going to inhibit their growth. And unfortunately, a lot of business owners, like back to your original question, was that they don't have enough patience to make sure that that sales plan is in place and that salesperson is learning to execute that plan along the way. Sometimes they think, well, they're here 2 months. Why aren't sales, going off the charts? Well, a lot of times, if you ask the business owner, what's your general sales cycle, they might say, oh, it's 2 months, right? So that by the time you talk with the customer, by the time they actually buy, it's 2 months. But when you dig a little deeper and you understand, you interview that buyer, you realize, no, they reached out to you, right? 2 months. And then you weren't really tracking it, so you didn't know that they reached out to you. And then, they attended a webinar, then they did this, and then it actually got logged in and was put on a forecast or something, maybe 3 months of when they reached out originally. So again, the business owner doesn't understand that the true buyer's journey, the true sales cycle is much longer than it actually is. And again, they get frustrated. They hired this new salesperson. They didn't produce much in the first quarter. They're not producing much in this quarter, not much better, but they don't really understand that, possibly there's some issues with the sales process within the organization, but also because they don't understand the true buyer's journey, they don't see how long it's going to take. So I always urge that whenever a business owner is hiring a new salesperson, you want them there in the organization for a minimum of 2 years, because after year 1, you really start to get your return on investment in that salesperson. And that when you bring them on board, you're onboarding them. You're not just putting them through a week's worth of training that says, hey, this is our product, this is our mission statement, this is our value proposition, this is the way our bells and whistles are, this is the way our service is done here. And then all of a sudden, after a week, they understand that. But that they truly understand how that solves issues for customers, right? Do they know that? Maybe there's some training that they need to go through. Maybe they're fantastic at building relationships, but they're weak at negotiating once it gets towards the end, right? And being able to, what I say, challenge the buyer, right? Challenge the buyer that says, hey, you think this, but you're actually incorrect because the industry is going this way. And you may not value this service that I'm giving you today, but let me tell you, this other company that's similar to yours was the same scenario you were in, didn't value it either, but now that's the most important reason why they're still with us today. So make sure that's part of your buying decision. And so that's what, business owners sometimes just don't have patience enough and don't truly understand that you really get your bang for your buck, your return on investment from your sales team in year 2. And that's why it's very important to retain them as much as possible.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close for today?
So great. That's everything I have to present today. Hopefully this content has been very beneficial to everyone listening and watching. Again, whenever a business is going through an inflection point, and like I said earlier in the conversation, that you never know when that's going to happen, when someone needs to exit. It could be something that's planned for 3 or 4 or 5 years out, a transition plan, or it could be something sudden. Having a good sales organization in place will make everyone's lives a lot easier. It will have a better quality of life on the business owner because he or she are not going to be stressed out about where revenues will be in the months and years and quarters ahead. So it's just very good to operate a business in this fashion for many different reasons.
Viewers and listeners want to get in contact with you, how best can they do that?
My first initial J and my last name Soares, Soares, at Sales Xcelleration, and there's a little play on that. So if you're watching this, you see acceleration is spelled with an X instead of an EX, so it's spelled SALES X CELERATION.com. So J Soares at salesxcelleration.com, and be happy to, anyone hits me up via email, be happy to spend 30 or 60 minutes of my time just talking about your particular sales situation and seeing if I can help or steer you in the right direction. Sometimes it's a marketing issue and not a sales issue, and I have lots of great advisors, fractional CMOs, chief marketing officers in my Power Partner network that I can steer you towards.
Jeff, it was a pleasure talking with you today.
It was a pleasure to be with you, Tara, and thank you for everyone for listening. Be well, everyone.
Check out our sponsor, Facilities Expo. They will be having one in Modesto for the Central Valley Facilities Expo on August 4th to 5th. They will have one in Southern California at the Anaheim Convention Center August 18th to 19th, and Northern California in Santa Clara on October 27th to 28th. Go to facilitiesexpo.com and register today. Now we will have a moment of silence for our Black Lives Matter community.